This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 36th time ever, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Reviewing Network Live. And in contrast to the last couple of weeks, where it's been kind of a very slow news week in general, we have a pretty good amount of stuff to talk about. A lot of intriguing stories came out over the last week, and why not go ahead and bring them all up? And I thought a couple things of noteworthiness to talk about afterwards. So we have a lot of things to get to here. I've already wasted so much of your time already, but let's go ahead and get right to it. Let's jump into the conversation by taking a look at the weekend box office, which was pretty intriguing as we look at the top 5 overall here. And we'll start off with the movies that we already know about, have been out here for the last couple weeks now, and that is, of course, number 5, Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, which still hanging in there, $4.5 million, dropping 37% from last week, bringing its 6-week total up to $188 million domestically, and over $546 million worldwide. So, instant hit on that one. Let's go ahead and start getting into some of the newer releases. Number 4, we have Tarot, which, if you saw Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, they probably tacked this on as the last trailer on there, really believing that Ghostbusters was really going to push this movie to a box office worthy than what it actually ended up making. They put this out in 3,000 theaters. Oh boy. Needless to say, this thing did not do well for a film in over 3,000 theaters. $6.5 million, which, I mean, for the budget for it, it's only $8 million in general, but, yeah, $6.5 million. The movie looked terrible from the get-go. This was the movie, if you don't know what Tarot was, it's a group of friends recklessly violating the sacred rule of tarot readings. They unwillingly unleash an unspeakable evil trapped within the curse cards. One by one, they come face to face with fate and end up in a race against death, which means that they were stupid idiots who decided to play with the fate that they had, play with the hands that they dealt with, and now they have to suffer the consequences for it. Play stupid games, play stupid prizes, yada yada yada. This is every horror movie you've ever seen in your entire life, and you people went out there to see it. Even if you didn't, it still was going to make its money back anyway with that small of a budget. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to number 3. Last week's number 1 movie, which was Challengers, which dropped 49% from last week, $7.6 million, bringing its 2-week gross to $29.4 million domestically. Worldwide, it's up to $52 million, which is right around its budget, $55 million. So, still uncertain whether or not MGM considers this a hit or not, but it's going to make its money budget back at least. Which brings us to the number 2 movie, and probably the most intriguing success story of the entire weekend. A re-release that was not advertised at all. It had a couple of posters. There wasn't a whole lot of advertising on TV, I should say. There was a lot of marketing posters and all, but Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, was re-released in the theaters this weekend, and did surprisingly really well. Yeah, this brought in $8,080,000, so $8.1 million in 2,700 theaters, which is incredible to think about, really, because, like I said, this did not get a whole lot of marketing on television, and there wasn't really a whole lot of marketing on online either, except for those posters, but people came out to see it, and this is actually one of the higher-grossing re-releases of recent memory. I mean, it's no Lion King, which made over $30 million in its last big re-release about over 10 years ago, but contributing factor mostly being that yesterday was May 4th, and, May the 4th be with you. Star Wars Day, pretty much. You had all the movies on TBS and FX throughout the course of the day yesterday, which I thought that was kind of interesting, seeing both of them on both networks, because it was all the Star Wars movies in random order. I think FX had them all starting with the original trilogy, then the sequel trilogy, and then TBS had the sequel trilogy first, then the original trilogy, and then the prequels. And it's interesting how you watch both of them, because TBS airs their movies in full widescreen. How if you go to FX, they're always widescreen with the black bars there. I thought that was kind of intriguing how they did that. But yeah, Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace brought in $8.1 million, which really was a surprise. I don't think anybody really expected it to do that well, but I guess it just goes to show you that people are rediscovering the Phantom Menace, and I still don't get why they are, because the prequel trilogy is just not that good. I'm sorry. I would rather have the sequel trilogy over the prequel trilogy. I don't care what anybody says. Star Wars has been better under Disney. I don't care what anybody says. I will live with that until the day I die. Star Wars was better under Disney. That's a little teaser for tomorrow's Movie Network Talks About too, by the way. So stay tuned for that coming up tomorrow night. But let's take a sip of my drink there. Let's get to the one that's going to ask a lot of questions about why this had to be out this particular weekend. The number one movie this weekend, not really much of a surprise. That was The Fall Guy, Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, in the movie version based off the TV series starring Lee Majors for the 1980s. $28.5 million, which does not sound like a bad opening if it wasn't for a couple of things. One, the start of the summer movie season, and two, the fact that the film cost $130 million. Now, worldwide grosses, it's a little bit better. It's up to $65 million worldwide, so I think it'll make its money back in one way, shape, or form, but the idea of opening this as the marquee film to launch the summer movie season, I think was a really bad idea. And I think a lot of people are realizing that this was a bad idea to open this movie this week. And the only reason why they moved it this week was because of the actor strike. And Warner Brothers basically put Dune in the same spot that The Fall Guy was in, so Fall Guy had no choice but to move out of there. If Warner Brothers had put Dune this particular weekend in May, I think it would have done as well as in May than it did in March, because in March it killed at the box office, and I think if you open it in May, it probably would have done about the same amount of money at the box office in general. But The Fall Guy, as much as I like the movie, and I really do like the film in general, we're so used to a big Marvel movie, from Marvel Studios, from Fox or Sony opening the summer movie season up. I mean, we just come to accept that now as the official starting point of the summer whenever a new Marvel film comes out on the first weekend of May. And it's the first time since 2006 that we've had a Marvel movie that didn't open the summer movie season. Instead, a film that really needed to do better in a time when there was not a whole lot of competition. And I think Universal really screwed the pooch on this film for allowing it to make any money at the box office, because we got Planet of the Apes coming up next weekend. We've got If coming out in the middle of May, which should do well for a family film. Then you got Furiosa and Garfield opening up on Memorial Day weekend. Like, that's 4 weeks where this film is probably going to be nearing an exit out of the top 10, because the studio made the mistake of opening it up this weekend. I mean, it's a film that is a crowd pleaser too. It's got a good A- cinema score, so maybe on that front, maybe that means the film will have some legs to it, but I really doubt it, considering what's coming up in the weeks ahead. And this was on my head when I did the summer movie preview thing last week too. I talked about how, there was really no reason why this film in particular needs to be the film that launches the summer movie season. You could have put it out in a slot where it could still make money, and there was literally no competition there. Like, you could have put it out on the weekend, on a couple weekends after Godzilla X Kong came out in April. This probably would have made money in April. This probably would have made money in March. But in May, to start the summer movie season off, that's asking this film to do too much. And I think it really bites Universal in the ass big time. Now, it's all going to depend on the legs at this point. If the film can make its money back through the worldwide grosses, I don't think they're going to I think it's going to be a little disappointing, but I don't think they would have a problem with that. But it's also going to need to have strong legs going forward to keep it afloat and give it some juice to maybe get to $100 million. But I don't know. I really don't see it likely happening, but stranger things have happened in the box office, so we will see how that pans out. So yeah, not much more to say about that one. The Fall Guy, #1 movie, that was kind of expected, but not the numbers that they were expecting. And they were expecting low numbers. I think the lowest projection was $30 million. And the fact that this just underperformed by a little bit is really disheartening to hear about, unfortunately, for a film that is actually really, really good and deserves to be seen in a movie theater, because it is a good love letter to stunt films. It's just a fun movie in general. It's a fun action romantic comedy with Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt giving two very solid performances, carrying the movie afloat. It's a really good movie, man. I really do recommend people check it out. And but just a bad decision to open this as the first official film of the summer. So with that said, let's get into our plethora of stories, because we have a lot to cover here. So let's go ahead and get to the first one, and it involves Scooby-Doo. So just here's the recap here. Scooby-Doo isn't profitable for Warner Brothers with a sequel to Scoob that would have been direct-to-video, but it's profitable when you do a terrible animated series on HBO Max, or when you're trying to do a live-action series for Netflix, because Netflix won the rights to pick up a live-action Scooby-Doo series, and I've got the story right here from Deadline Hollywood. Classic Warner Brothers IP is heading to Netflix with a reimagining from one of the studio's top TV producers. In a competitive situation with multiple bidders, the streamer has landed Scooby-Doo, the live-action series from Greg Berlanti's Berlanti Productions and Warner Brothers Television, where the company is based. Written by Josh Applebaum and Scott Rosenberg, who wrote for the Cowboy Bebop show, Scooby-Doo is a live-action update of the popular cartoon. In a tough TV marketplace, the drama project, which that's concerning right there, that it's being called a drama project, which this really should not. The drama project garnered interest from top buyers, ending up at Netflix with a premium scripted series commitment. Scooby-Doo, the live-action series, executive produced by Greg Berlanti, Sarah Sheeter, and Leia London Redmond for Berlanti Productions. And it just gives you the rundown of what the studio has done beforehand. But that's a little concerning that they're selling it as a drama. If you wanted to do a live-action Scooby-Doo project, I've always had the idea of them doing a live-action series where the gang is grown up and they get together after a long time to solve mysteries. I mean, as a comedy, no, not as a drama series. I mean, it feels like they're going to do the same thing. That scares me, because it makes me think they're going to do the same thing to this they tried to do with the Powerpuff Girls, which failed miserably before we even got to see what the pilot was going to be. The show was going to be, because the pilot was made and nobody else in the studio even looked at it and said, we can't do this way. We're not going to cancel it right away. We're going to try to save this sinking ship. And then the ship just fell off the cliff, and the project eventually went dead, because everyone realized, yeah, doing a live action dramatic version of the Powerpuff Girls the way we were going to do it was probably the stupid idea. So I'm hoping they learned their lesson with this particular project, but it feels like they're trying to do something similar to what they did with the Archie series in Riverdale and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. But I really hope they don't go the dramatic route here. I hope it's more of the comedic setup that the show is known for. I mean, it's just, if you're going to add another level to this, do something different with it. I mean, do something new and different with it, with the project in general. And yeah, I know Netflix has had their successes with stuff like Cowboy Bebop, One Piece, The Last Airbender, but let's be honest, most of those shows are not that good. I mean, Cowboy Bebop was passable, One Piece I thought was okay for what it was, Last Airbender was a complete mess, so needless to say, I don't think I'm going to be that optimistic for this to actually come on out, but I mean, stranger things have happened, no pun intended, for Netflix, but I don't know. I don't have a lot of high hopes that this turns out to be any good. I feel like they're going to take a route with this that they probably should not be taking. But I'm not the one making the decisions at Netflix. So trust me, if that was the case, I probably would make better decisions than this. But what do I know? With that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next story. And it was a very good week for Paul Walter Hauser. I mean, you know, he's a guy that is slowly but surely rising to the occasion and becoming an actor that is becoming synonymous with most people, because, you know, think about what he's done in the last couple of years. He's been in movies like Cruella, I, Tonya, Richard Jewell, Cobra Kai. This year he's going to be in Inside Out 2, and then this week alone he signed up to star as Captain Ed Hocken in the new Naked Gun reboot, which stars Liam Neeson. He got a role in a Fantastic Four, the new Marvel Studios version, and he's also, and before even those happened, New Line Cinema picked up his the biopic that he's going to be starring in, as he'll play Chris Farley. I have the story right here from Variety. New Line Cinema has landed the Chris Farley biopic starring Paul Walter Hauser in what Variety was told was a highly competitive situation. The film, which had the blessing of the Farley family, which will mark actor Josh Gad's directorial debut, with Lorne Michaels and Aaron David producing via Broadway Video. Oscar and Emmy nominees Scott Newstander and Michael H. Weber, the disaster artist of Daisy Jones and the Six, will write the screenplay based off the New York Times best-selling biography, The Chris Farley Show, a biography of 3 acts by Tom Farley Jr. and Tanner Colby. Hauser, an Emmy Critics' Choice and Golden Globe award-winning actor known for his role in Blackbird, will next be seen in Inside Out 2, as I mentioned, as the voice of an embarrassment. He will then appear again opposite Matt Damon in Apple Original Films' The Instigators, held by Doug Liman. He's also set to lead Tony Todd's directorial debut, Americana, opposite Sydney Sweeney, which was recently acquired by Lionsgate. Before his death in 1997 of a drug overdose, Chris Farley rose to fame during his 5 seasons as a cast member on Saturday Night Live. Farley brought his charisma to the big screen with comedies like Tommy Boy, Black Sheep, and Beverly Hills Ninja. And Chris Farley played a big part of my life. He was my first real understanding of death, because this is somebody that as a 6, 7, 8-year-old growing up around that time, I admired Chris Farley. I thought he was very funny. I thought he was a guy that, he seemed like a guy that just really, he knew how to make people laugh, and he was very funny, he's very clever, and anytime he'd show up, you'd get excited for him being on TV. And then when he died, that was my first real knowledge of death and how it affected me, because he was the first person in my life at that point that really, when he died, that choked me up. That got to me as an 8-year-old, because this guy that I grew up loving and admiring, he passes away in such a tragic way, and it's just like, oh my God, like that. Like I said, that was my first real knowledge of death. The first real death that really affected me in my life. And it wasn't even someone in my immediate family. It was like a celebrity, but a really funny celebrity too. And I'm worried about this for one particular reason: the fact that the Farley family approved it. It's not that. I think that they should get the blessing of the family to do it, but it's that thing that I've talked about with other biographies that have been coming out. It's just like, how much of this is actually going to be faithful to what actually happened in real life? Or are they going to go for the typical biopic where we can't go into the heavy stuff? No, we can't do that, because we don't want to make this guy look like an asshole. I mean, the guy died of a drug overdose. I don't know how you can make a happy ending out of this whole thing, but that's the thing I worry about with most biopics. I don't think they're going to go down that route. I think it'd be best to just tell people, this is how it happened. I mean, it's not that hard to do. It's not that difficult to say, hey, we admire this person for who he is, but we can't just sit here and pretend like he's always going to be he was always that sweet good guy that everybody knew about. No, just go in and say the stuff. You can still do that, but tackle the bad stuff too. I mean, don't be afraid to let him do something and not say, and don't sugarcoat it. Don't act like it's something that, I like this something you can clean up, because Bohemian Rhapsody, I keep talking about it, was one of the worst examples of that, because they went for a safe and marketable approach. We've had that so many times since then. I mean, Bob Marley, One Love, Whitney Houston, the list can go on, but I really hope they don't go down that route. I really hope they just stay true to the actual story. And if you do that, I think this film could turn out really, really good. I'm really looking forward to it, because, like I said, I have such a favoritism for Chris Farley in general. So I really hope it's good. I hope they don't go down that route, and I think they know what they're doing here. I'm gonna give Josh Gad the benefit of the doubt here on this one. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they do with it. So that's the story on the Chris Farley biopic. Moving on to story number 3. We finally have the power. I apologize for that. I shouldn't have done that. But Masters of the Universe, the live-action movie that's been talked about for so many years, is finally moving forward. The Hollywood Reporter has the story here. The long-gestating live-action Masters of the Universe film is finally getting a release date. Amazon MGM has stated the Mattel film for a June 5th, 2026 worldwide theatrical release. The film will follow, according to the synopsis, 10-year-old Prince Adam, who crashed to Earth in a spaceship and was separated from his magical power sword, the only link to his home in Eternia. After tracking it down almost 2 decades later, Prince Adam is whisked back across space to defend his home planet against the evil forces of Skeletor. But to defeat such a powerful villain, Prince Adam will first need to uncover the mystery of his past to become He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. So in a way, it feels like they're doing a role reversal of the original Masters of the Universe film, where it takes place first on Eternia, and then it has to go to Earth because Canon Films didn't have the budget to do a full film on Eternia. They had to do it on Earth, and it looks like they're doing the complete opposite of it, which really should work in the film's favor when it's over and done with. But I think the big thing that's really going to put this, should save the film in general, is the people who are working on it. Travis Knight, who of course did a lot of work for Leica, some really great films, by the way. Paranorman, Coraline was why am I forgetting his name now? Henry Selick. Coraline was Henry Selick, but Travis Knight's directed a ton of stuff for Leica. He did Kubo and the Two Strings. He did Missing Link. He did Bumblebee. No, he didn't do Missing Link. I'm getting my information wrong. He did Bumblebee, though, which was probably the first real good Transformers film since the original film. So I think we're in good hands with the director. We're in good hands with the writer, too, Chris Butler, who did write a lot of stuff for Leica as well. So Mattel's Masters of the Universe brand was first introduced in 1982 as a line of action figures and later became a TV series. A Masters movie had long been in development, moving from Sony to Netflix to Amazon MGM, with several filmmakers attached at any given time, including David Callahan and Aaron and Adam Nee, who were responsible for the original draft of the Amazon MGM movie. Other films opening in 2026 include Toy Story 5 and the Universal movie from Everything Everywhere All at Once duo Daniels. So that's pretty much all we know about this movie now, the Masters of the Universe film, because there is no casting yet. But it does seem like they are finally moving in the direction of actually getting this made, considering that this is a film that's been trying to get made for so many years now. And like I said, I think the talent that they have in the writing and directing chair, I think that's really going to be the thing that's going to push this film to another level. I think they've got good talents there to make this film possible, and I'm really tempted to see what they do here. I really hope it turns out to be good. And like I said, it comes out on June 5th, 2026, so we will see how that one will pan out. So with that said, let us move on to, I believe we're at number 4 here in terms of the stories. Yes, we are. Story number 4. There is a horror god. The saints be praised. The Exorcist films actually have some life to them because they finally are getting a director that can actually save the series. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Deadline Hollywood has the story here. Renowned genre filmmaker Mike Flanagan is in talks to direct the next Exorcist film from Blumhouse and Universal Pictures. Sources have confirmed to Deadline. Universal and Blumhouse declined comment. Should a deal make, Flanagan would take over the reins for David Gordon Green, who exited the rebooted franchise back in January. Universal and Blumhouse bought rights to The Exorcist from Oregon Creek back in July 2021 for $400 million. And while the plan at that point was for at least 3 new films to be made, it's unclear whether Flanagan will be on for more than one. Of course, last October we had the infamous The Exorcist Believer, which was a big flop. It was a flop at the box office, a flop critically, one of the worst movies of last year. Just a terrible film because they were trying to turn it into the next Halloween trilogy, and it just failed miserably. And there really was no hope for this without a new director involved. And if you're going to get anybody to direct this movie, Mike Flanagan has to be your guy to do it. I mean, this is a guy that has been one of the best horror directors we've had, probably the best horror director we have right now, period. This is a guy that did The Fall of the House of Usher. This is a guy that directed great stuff like Dr. Sleep, Gerald's Game. He turned the Ouija series around and made Oculus, The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Blind Manor. This is a guy that knows what he's doing. Like, he's a solid freaking director, and it's anybody out there that can fix where the Exorcist series is going to go from here, it's that guy. And it's going to be interesting to see if they continue that direction they have there, because they said it was originally 3 films. That was the original plan overall, but they may change that around and see what happens with this particular film. And maybe, who knows, maybe this could be the thing that actually turns it around, but it makes them want to do 3 more films after this. But you spent $400 million making these movies, and considering that the first film failed to make a mark at the box office in general, you better damn well get somebody in there to fix this, because you have to stop the ship from sinking here. And I think Mike Flanagan is easily your guy that can do that with no problems whatsoever. Just let him do what he does best, and he'll deliver for you. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that happening. If Mike Flanagan does become the next director for The Exorcist, it's definitely a step in the right direction for them. That's the step that they need to take with it, easily. So let's go ahead and move on to our next story. Story number 5. So this week was a pivotal week for Paramount Global. There was a month-long negotiating with Skydance that ended on Friday night, and everyone thought that Skydance would be the best place for Paramount to go to, but there was something that eventually became someone else came in and basically decided to told Skydance to hold their beer, and that was Sony, who offered a $26 billion cash bid on Paramount. And I've got the story right here from Deadline with an update, because there was some news that broke even to this very day of certain people who are backing David Ellison of Skydance. So the story goes, a special committee of the Paramount Global Board decided at a meeting yesterday to begin talking with Sony and Apollo following the expiration of a month-long negotiating window with Skydance on Friday night. The committee met over the weekend to consider its approach to the preliminary $26 billion cash bid, including the assumption of debt made jointly by the entertainment giant and global private equity firm. But the David Ellison studio is still in the mix as Paramount seeks to continue those talks, just not exclusive, obviously. There's a deal that won't have any regulatory issues in closing, as the one Paramount controlling shareholder Sherry Redstone prefers. Paramount shareholders hate the Skydance deal just as much as Hollywood detests the idea of a Paramount-Sony merging. As a combination that would need to pass regulatory scrutiny, the assets would also likely need to be split up. Hollywood, however, sides with Sherry. In an FT story today, James Cameron says, "I love the Ellison idea." Ari Emanuel calls David Ellison a natural acquirer of Paramount. Ellison became backed up by Larry Ellison and Redbird Capital, would take over Paramount by acquiring Redstone's controlling stake. It would remain a public company, which would then, in the second step, acquire Skydance in an all-stock deal. Shareholders have been sniping for months over Redstone's premium and dilution from the all-stock deal, which means issuing millions of these shares. The new owner would inject fresh capital into the merged company led by Ellison and Jeff Shell, which would be restructured. So, what's basically going on here is that we have no idea who's picking up Paramount. Somebody's going to buy Paramount. It's either going to be Skydance, who had been the long time considered the front runners to essentially pick them up, or we're going to have another Disney-Fox merger situation here, where Sony would come in and pick up Paramount, and you would basically have a Sony-Paramount merger in the same vein as the Disney-Fox situation. And it took a while for Disney and Fox. There were some rough patches, but the last couple of years in general have basically led to Disney doing a pretty decent job with Fox so far. I mean, it's not the best so far, but I think it's a lot better than people have let on in general. But Sony and Paramount, I don't think really makes a whole lot of sense in general, at least to me. Like, if Paramount's going to merge with anybody in general, I mean, merge with somebody like Warner Brothers. I think Universal and Warner Brothers should merge together, because Universal and Warner Brothers pretty much have already been part of the same company with their home media department, because their physical media department is Studio Distribution Services, which releases for both Warner Brothers and Universal. So really, Paramount really doesn't know where they're going at this point. I mean, are they going to still remain their own company by the time we're talking about this a month from now? Hopefully. Or is it going to be a Sony-Paramount merger, which means that all hell's going to break loose, and we're going to have another situation like with Disney and Fox, like with Warner Brothers and Discovery, like with Amazon and MGM, where there has to be a lot of considerations in terms of regulatory regulations that need to be regulatory issues that need to be shaped out here. But I mean, it's hard to say where it is right now, because I would say it could go either way, but even I'm thinking it's really hard to tell who's going to end up owning Paramount by the time this whole thing is over with. Will it be Sony? Will it be Skydance? If I had to put my money to it, I think Skydance has a better opportunity, but it wouldn't surprise me if Sony uses that $26 billion bid in cash to potentially pick them up. I mean, it feels like it's going in that direction. And then from the skies, here comes Disney, who will probably make a deal with Paramount. I mean, I'm not surprised Disney hasn't. I'm surprised Disney hasn't made an offer to Paramount yet. I mean, at this point, why not? Because apparently every studio wants to buy Paramount at this point. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting month, to say the least, on that story front. But we'll see what happens. Paramount will likely get an owner within the next month or so. But who will it be? Will it be Skydance? Will it be Sony? Will it be a random third party that comes out of nowhere? We will find out, and we will keep you updated on that as that unfolds. So even though Paramount had a busy week, has been busy in that sort of way, one of their sister studios has also been very busy as well, as they have become the first studio to release their primetime schedule. So let's take a look at what's been going on over at CBS. So yeah, the fall schedule doesn't usually come out from the major networks until mid-May, but because of everything that's going on over at Paramount right now, I think CBS wanted to get the schedule out of the way, just in case something were to happen. So on Thursday, CBS became the first network to officially unveil their schedule for the 2024-2025 primetime fall TV season. And I'll go ahead and just run down the shows here, and we'll take a look at some of the clips here, because there are clips online, teaser clips for all these shows, and we'll just kind of run through them on that front. But starting on Monday, we have The Neighborhood, which, I mean, that's been there for a while now. We have the new show Papa's House with Damon Wayans and his son, Damon Wayans Jr. We have NCIS, the original NCIS, and then we have a prequel spin-off, NCIS Origins, featuring a young, whoever the character Mark Harmon plays in NCIS. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it's a younger version of him, and we'll get to him eventually when we get to that show, but that's a new show that's on Monday night. Tuesday night, we have FBI International, and FBI Most Wanted, so not surprising there. Wednesday, Survivor. Then there's a new reality show called The Summit. There's a mid-season winter break where The Price is Right at night, Raid the Cage, and a new version of Hollywood Squares with Drew Barrymore as the center square will air in the wintertime. On Thursday night, we have the show that will replace Young Sheldon, the spinoff, Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage, centering around Sheldon's brother and his new wife. The wife played by Emily Osmond, the brother played by Montana Jordan, and like I said, we'll delve into that when we get to that show in particular. But Ghost at 8:30, which I was kind of surprised that Ghost didn't move up into the Young Sheldon slot, because Ghost has become a big hit for CBS, and usually when you have a show that's rising, you put that show as the anchor of your schedule, but they're keeping Ghost right there, sandwiched between two new shows in particular, because the next show after Ghost is the new version of Matlock with Kathy Bates. We also have Carrie Preston and the return of Elsbeth, the new show this year from CBS. Friday night, SWAT starts at 8 o'clock, Fire Country at 9. Blue Bloods has its final season at 10, and then after Blue Bloods ends in December, they switch the schedule around so that NCIS Sydney can come into play at 8 o'clock on Friday nights, followed by Fire Country, and then SWAT moves down to 10 p.m. Saturday night, you have the encores of different shows on CBS in 48 hours. Sunday, 60 Minutes, tracker, this season's new hit show, The Equalizer, and then encore broadcast of popular network dramas in the first half of the second season because of football on CBS. And then after that, Tracker at 8, The Equalizer at 9, and then Watson with Morris Chestnut at 10. So there are some notable changes in particular, but it seems like they're filling slots with shows that are similar to the shows that used to be there, because NCIS Hawaii was on Monday nights at 10, and so they're replacing it with NCIS Origins, and then, of course, Young Sheldon. Their spin-off, Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage, is moving into that slot. Matlock is replacing So Help Me Todd. Papa's House is filling in for Bob Hart's Abishala, which ends tomorrow night. Watson gets the slot held by CSI Vegas. And they have all the shows here. So let's just go ahead and take a look at these little teasers here, because that's what they really are, just little teasers for what's coming up for these new shows in particular. And let's start off with the fall drama series, and we have NCIS Origins. Jethro Gibbs is the name I was thinking of before. It's literally right there in the description. And let's go ahead and play the clip from NCIS Origins.
We know how his story ended. Now see how it all began. NCIS Origins, coming CBS Fall.
Yeah, like I said, it's only 10-second clips in general of all the shows listed here. So most of them are 10-second clips. Some of them are like 20 to 30 seconds, but NCIS Origins follows a young Leroy Jethro Gibbs. I guess Leroy Gibbs is his name. I said Jethro Gibbs, but Leroy Jethro Gibbs, played by Austin Stowell in 1991, years prior to the events of NCIS, and is narrated by Mark Harmon. So I guess you could say it's young Gibbs, if you will, because it's like young Sheldon, too. But in the series, Gibbs starts his career as a newly minted special agent at the fledgling NCIS Camp Pendleton office, where he forges his place on a gritty ragtag team led by NCIS legend Mike Franks, played by Kyle Schmid. So I don't watch NCIS, but it's apparently still popular. I mean, it's still one of the most popular shows on TV, even though it's been on for over 20 years. And it's had a longer legacy than the show that it spun off on, Jag has. And it shows that, it just goes to show you that, I mean, this is still a show that it still finds a way to find an audience, even after 20 years. But then again, there's still old people, too, and that's basically what the audience is for this show. I mean, Family Guy, I think, did the best joke about NCIS, which it's them watching of NCIS in their hotel room, and then they're watching it just like, you're watching CBS, the loudest network on TV, and then as soon as the show begins, it's just like, previously on NCIS, and the family is just going into, it's just like struggling to hold on as the room is like shaking and everything, and like it's just like, it's fun. I mean, it's fun to make fun of that, and I guess there has to be an audience for it. I mean, like I said, I really don't know too much about NCIS in general to really know if this is going to turn out to be any good or not, but it'll probably be a hit, especially coming after NCIS. They should have no trouble making that a success whatsoever. Moving on to the second show we have here, and that is Matlock, the Kathy Bates show. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at this.
There's this funny thing that happens when women age. We become damn near invisible. But it's useful because nobody sees us coming.
Matlock stars Kathy Bates as the brilliant septuagenarian. It seems like a word that should be so hard to understand, but I got it so quickly. Brilliant septuagenarian Madeline Hattie Matlock, who, after achieving success in her younger years, decides to rejoin the workforce at a prestigious law firm, where she uses her unassuming demeanor and wily tactics to win cases and expose corruption from within. Maddie is assigned to Olympia, played by Sky P. Marshall, a senior attorney and key rainmaker with a thirst for justice, while Olympia's ex-husband, Julian, played by Jason Ritter, the son of the head of the firm, is intrigued by Maddie and her clever skills. Maddie works alongside the firm's younger assistants, the charismatic Billy, played by David Del Rio, and the uber-ambitious Sarah, played by Leah Lewis. As she endeavors to establish herself in a new high-stakes world, Matlock is a reimagining of the classic TV series of the same name, which is, of course, the show with Andy Griffith. And Matlock was a show I grew up watching. I used to watch it on reruns on TBS. I never watched the NBC and ABC original runs, but I rediscovered the show not too long ago when the sets came out on DVD, and just, it's hard not to get invested in that show with just the theme song alone. And it's just like, it's a great show. Like, Andy Griffith is really good on the show. It's just a fun mystery show in general, a fun courtroom show. It's a really good show, and Kathy Bates can usually really put a lot of entertainment value into anything. I mean, she can put herself into a bad thing and make something good out of it. So this is one I'm definitely looking forward to checking out, especially with the name recognition of Matlock and the star involved with Kathy Bates. So I'm definitely looking forward to checking out that. So moving on to the comedies that we have here, let's move on to the Young Sheldon spinoff, and that is Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage.
We're grateful that we get the opportunity to continue these characters and continue this story. I think it's going to be really fun.
Georgie and Mandy Cooper. I'd go to a barbecue at their house.
So Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage is the sequel to Young Sheldon, following Georgie, played by Montana Jordan, and Mandy, played by Emily Osmond, as they raise their young family in Texas while navigating the challenges of adulthood, parenting, and marriage. And I found this kind of interesting in general. I talked about before how I feel like this should have been a show that should have followed Ghost and not be a show before Ghost. I think Ghost should have had the marquee 8 o'clock time slot, especially considering how that show's continued to be on the rise as of late. But I'm also kind of curious of how this show's going to pan out in particular, because even if you didn't like The Big Bang Theory, I would still say you should check out Young Sheldon, because it's a radically different kind of spin-off show to The Big Bang Theory. One, it's not a laugh track show. Two, it's a show where you really do get invested in the family dynamics of it. It's more of a drama at times than a comedy, and I think it's one of the things that's really attracted a lot of people to it, and myself included, because it's such an engaging show, because you do like these characters in particular. With this show in particular, with this new show coming up, though, I have my doubts about it, because I don't know. It just feels like a show that could be a one-note premise right off the bat. Like, it doesn't feel like there's going to be... It doesn't sound like there's a whole lot there that could make for an entire series, but... And then again, there's been a lot of spin-offs that have come out that look like they don't feel like they're going to do anything... They're going to do a whole lot with it, like Better Call Saul, Frasier. I mean, those are two of the best examples. I'm thinking they're hoping more for that, and I'm hoping it's not going to be more like Aftermath or so, but they're talking about doing shows similar to this. With Everybody Loves Raymond, there was going to be a show where Brad Garrett was going to star with his wife on there from Everybody Loves Raymond. I think they were talking about doing a Niles and Daphne show at one point after Frasier ended, but that never went anywhere, and I don't know if it shouldn't have went anywhere. I think Cheers and Frasier, I think that's a perfect bookend for that character of Frasier Crane in general, even though the new show has just come out in the last year or so, and it has been okay so far. It starts off slow, but the last couple of episodes were really solid. So with this, I'm not sure how it's going to pan out. I think people will come to it because it is the same people that gave us The Big Bang Theory and Young Sheldon, which were two of the more successful comedies of the last couple of years. I think there will be an audience for it, but I have my concerns going in with this one. Let's get to probably the best-looking comedy of the two that we have here, and that is Papa's House, which stars Damon Wayans and his son, Damon Wayans Jr.
You know, at CBS, is it just me, or does it feel like one big family? That's definitely on brand for us. Yeah, Dad. Don't call me Dad. Father. It is the master of the mic, the king of the kings, the living legend, 6-time Mark Tony Radio Award winner, and 7-time award winner, Damon Wayans and Damon Wayans Jr. The new comedy, Papa's House, coming CBS Fall.
Like I said, it stars Damon Wayans, and Damon Wayans Jr., and features Wayans Sr. as legendary talk and radio host and happily divorced Papa, who has his point of view challenged at work when a new female co-host played by Essence Atkins is hired, and at home where he finds himself still parenting his adult son, Wayans Jr., a brilliant dreamer who is trying to pursue his passions while being a responsible father and husband. And I'm really sold on this just because of Damon Wayans and Damon Wayans Jr. I mean, these two are very funny comedians. They've been involved with very good shows in the last couple of years. My Wife and Kids with Wayans Sr., Happy Endings, of course, with Wayans Jr. They're very funny comedians. I'm really excited to see what they do with this. And I know it's a typical laugh track comedy, but at the same time, sometimes they could actually be fun to watch. I mean, ABC has some good traditional laugh track comedies with the Connors and all that, but I'm really excited to see what they do with this particular show. There is one more new show on here that there actually is a clip for, and that's for The Summit. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at this. Did they really just use the Howie Long scream? Really? Like, I know that's the Howie Long scream. Like, if you see movies, then you see, like, if they're not using the Wilhelm scream, they're using the Howie Long scream, the one that's just like, yeah! I can't believe they actually used that.
You say this, Marvel? Your challenge is to reach the summit. To reach a what?
You know, I'm making fun of them for using the Howie Long scream, but I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of interested in this. I don't like reality shows in general, but this actually looks like it could be pretty interesting. You have The Summit, hosted by Manu Bennett, I think I'm pronouncing that right, following 16 strangers embarking on a once-in-a-lifetime journey through the treacherous New Zealand Alps in an attempt to reach the peak of a distant towering mountain. With their backpacks containing an equal share of $1 million, the group must traverse an exhausting distance in just 14 days in order to win the cash they are carrying. But not everyone will make it, as these strangers must work together to tackle the dangerous terrain unforgiving Antarctic winds, heart-pounding challenges, and gut-wrenching eliminations on their way to the peak. Tracking them along this journey is the mountain's keeper, who will surprise the trekkers with brutal twists and forced decisions that complicate an already grueling ascent. Morals and relationships will be tested when they must decide what to do if someone falls behind, because if the group fails to reach the summit in time, all the prize money will be lost. Why don't you just take the money and just get the hell out of there, just sneak off away from the cameras? Have you thought about that? I mean, it's not that hard of an idea to figure out there, guys. You have a quarter, do you know your phone number? You're 15 bits run. Stop thinking and start making moves. That's a little Dave Chappelle for you in there, but you get the idea I'm trying to get to here. But in reality, if you got a backpack which has an equal share of $1 million, you know, you could just try to sneak off and get the hell out of there without the cameras ever knowing that you're really left. I mean, it's not that hard to do, but then again, what do I know? I don't work reality television, if this is actual reality television, but I love the idea of sending these people up to these mountains, and it just reminds me of stuff like, you know, movies like Alive and Cliffhanger, like and Everest, you know, these movies where you have these characters going through these harsh circumstances, dealing with the rocky terrain, the winds, the weather changing, and it's always interesting to watch when I see that in those movies. So, truth be told, I'm kind of tempted to see what this actually might be like. If it follows the same typical pattern like Survivor does, I'm probably going to step away from it as soon as the first episode's over. But if it's actually continuing to do so, if it's going to do something different than Survivor or The Amazing Race, it could actually be worth something in the end. So, and like I said, that was the last of the trailers that were put up on here. We won't know what the other networks will have in store. ABC, NBC, Fox. We won't figure that out until next week after Mother's Day, which Fox usually puts their schedule out on Mother's Day and then has their big thing on Monday, the Monday after Mother's Day. So we'll see if that actually turned out to be the case this time around, or if it changes around here or not. But so CBS put out their schedule. So let's go ahead and continue on the television schedule here and look at what's going on with the NFL. So I know we're still kind of in the doldrums of the NFL season. We had the off-season beginning with the free agency frenzy. We had the combine. We had the draft happen not too long ago. We got the schedule coming out in a couple weeks. But this year has been very different for the NFL Network in particular. And there was a lot of big changes that they made over the last couple of weeks and months, including a lot of people getting fired, and a lot of people moving out. They're moving their shows around and all that. So the NFL Network has been very busy in terms of cutting things down, a lot of layoffs, and NFL Network started with cutting ties with Michael Irvin, who'd been with the network for the past 15 years, and it comes as a midst of a major shakeup of the network. I've got the story here from Deadline Hollywood. The former Dallas Cowboys wide receiver had been at the network since 2009. He made headlines when he was booted from NFL Network's Super Bowl coverage in 2023 following a complaint from a woman that he checked into his hotel, and Irvin denied wrongdoing and filed a defamation lawsuit alleging he was falsely accused. And Irvin came back to the show at the start of the NFL season. NFL Network is currently going through major changes and cutting some of its on-air talent. At the beginning of April, it was reported that Melissa Stark, Andrew Siciliano, Will Silva, and James Palmer were getting cut. Amid the changes, the NFL Network is in the process of moving production of Good Morning Football from New York City to its headquarters in Los Angeles. The morning show, hosted by Jamie Erdahl, Kyle Brandt, Jason McCourty, and Peter Schrager, was placed on a hiatus until later this summer amid the move. GMFB briefly returned to cover the NFL draft from Detroit, Michigan. NFL Network has not confirmed whether the show will return to new episodes or which host will make the move to the West Coast. But in addition to that, you just knew that something was going on with the news of the ESPN and NFL Network potentially merging, because this was the next story that came out literally afterwards. NFL Network has canceled NFL Total Access after 21 years on the air. Amid the major changes of the network, the football news show, which premiered in 2003 and airs on weeknights, was canceled. And NFL Total Network's most recent roster includes Mike Yam, Kimmy Chex, David Carr, Michael Robinson, Chase Daniel. According to the report from The Athletic, the last show for NFL Total Access is set for May 17th. So why is NFL Network cutting down so much? What is going on? What is happening with this network where, they're cutting everything down here, and it's basically, like it feels like NFL Network is running on fumes at this point? Well, there's something that's happening with ESPN, as I've talked about. I've got the latest update here. This is from Yardbarker, even though this was originally released on Larry Brown Sports, but deal between ESPN and NFL could be finalized soon. NFL Network has been making numerous cuts in recent months, and the change may be the result of the NFL's ongoing negotiations with ESPN. Sports media reporter Andrew Marchand broke the story in January that the NFL was in deep discussions about a deal that would result in the league taking an equity stake in ESPN. While talks were said to be in the early stages, they were serious enough that team members in the NFLPA have been notified. According to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, the belief in NFL circles is that an agreement between ESPN and the NFL is all but signed. Florio reported on Friday that a deal could be finalized as soon as next week. The NFL wants to unload NFL media for some time, and this has not been a financial success for the league. ESPN would have the advantage of being closely tied to the most powerful sports league in America as it prepares to move to a direct-to-consumer model within the next 2 years. ESPN has an existing $2.6 billion rights deal with the NFL, which includes the Monday Night Football package. Of course, there will be major questions about ESPN's coverage of the NFL and whether it will be truly objective. If the two sides enter into an agreement, it will be also interesting to see what happens to one of the NFL's top reporters. Of course, that was Ian Rappaport, who was one of the few people who actually got a new contract with the NFL Network, even with this news coming in that their ESPN and NFL Network could eventually merge together. I'm trying to see if I could find any other information here that I wasn't able to find in that particular first story here. Let's see. Okay, there was nothing else new that I didn't already tell you in that first story, but the big thing is that NFL Network is close to shutting down and essentially going to be merged together with ESPN. I mean, that seems like a given at this point. Whether or not it actually happens this week, I mean, you don't get rid of a show like NFL Total Access, which is the staple of that network, and basically you don't get rid of that hoping that you're going to just fill it with stuff until the new season starts. I mean, there has to be something going on here, and I think that's going to be ESPN eventually. If it's this week, it'll be this week that we hear something, but other than that, it's not going to surprise me if ESPN eventually ends up picking up NFL Network. But that was not the only big news story going on in the world of TV sports. Let's take a look at what's going on in the NBA. So right now going on is the NBA playoffs, and it could be one of the last times that TNT will have the NBA playoffs if NBC has something to say about it. NBC Universal is planning to pay an average of about $2.5 billion a year for the rights to the NBA, as fees for the league's coveted broadcasts are set to double from current levels, according to a report on Monday. If accepted, the broadcast rights to the basketball games could change hands from TNT, which has paid an average fee of $1.2 billion under its current deal, to the Peacock Network, the Wall Street Journal reported. This story in particular comes from the New York Post, by the way. TNT parent Warner Bros. Discovery was unable to reach a new pact with the NBA before an exclusive negotiating window expired last week. For Warner Bros. Discovery, the loss of the NBA would be a huge blow to TNT, as well as its planned sports streaming venture that it's launching alongside Disney and Fox. Sources told the Journal that it would be a harder time changing distributors as much for the carriage of the channels, which they estimate to be roughly $3 a month per cable customer. The company began airing the games in 1984 under its TBS channel brand before it began broadcasting them on TNT 3 years later. Meanwhile, Disney's ESPN Sports Network began broadcasting the NBA in 2002. Disney is expected to pay an average per-year fee of about $2.6 billion to renew its deal, up from the $1.5 billion per year now, the Journal reported. The package that NBC is bidding on would include playoff and regular season games that would appear on NBC and its streaming service Peacock. The Journey added that NBC is also discussing carrying 2 primetime games a week, which Warner can't afford because it doesn't own a broadcast network. According to the Journal, Warner Bros. Discovery has the ability to try to match rival offers. Each TV partner will be allowed fewer games under the new deal that is under the current packs because the league set aside some games for its streaming partner, Amazon Prime Video, which already has the framework of a deal in place, according to The Athletic. The NBA's negotiations with the streaming and TV partners are still fluid, and the bidders are still haggling over who gets the rights to the most high-profile games and series. The Journal reported that Amazon is likely to get a share of the conference finals alongside the other partners, and Disney's ABC is on track to regain the rights to the NBA Finals. NBC Universal, TNT, the NBA, and ESPN did not immediately comment. So, if all goes well, we could be hearing this classic little gem on TV again in a matter of a few years. John Tesh's finest work, ladies and gentlemen, The Round Ball Rock, if NBC is lucky, if NBC gets lucky and gets these rights, we're going to be hearing that song on TV again. And quite frankly, I'm all in on that front. But in terms of the deal itself, though, I think this would be a good blow to Warner Brothers Discovery, especially for David Zaslav, who, we talked about his complete ineptitude for how he's been running the company ever since he became the president of Warner Brothers. And I think that losing the NBA would be a nice, huge blow for him to say, hey, payback is a bitch. Now, granted, that would also mean losing Inside the NBA, which is still honestly the best NBA entertainment show out there. And, Ernie Johnson, Kenny Mayne, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, it's going to be tough not seeing them on TV if NBC ends up picking them up, especially considering that Ernie Johnson is sticking with Turner Sports, even though the NBA won't be there if they don't match a deal, which I think it's going to be hard for them to match a deal anyway, because I think NBC has the upper hand in this case here. Yeah, it's going to suck losing the Inside the NBA, but I think it's going to be better for NBC to pick up the NBA coverage in general here, just to give them a little bit of a boost there. And I think that's something that I actually do want to see happen. I do want to see the NBA get involved with NBC once again, because those were good times, man. The NBC got the NBA at the right time when Michael Jordan was at his peak. You had guys like Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, Patrick Ewing, Dennis Rodman, Hakeem Olajuwon, John Stockton, Karl Malone, Dikembe Mutombo, Not in My House. I mean, those were good times, man. I'm not saying that the NBA is bad right now, is not as good as it is as it was back then, but NBA on NBC back in the day was just something special, man. You just had to be there for that moment. But I would like to see the NBA go back to NBC, but I don't know. I think they've got the upper hand in this one, but who knows? This might be the one thing for David Zaslav to say, hey, I'm willing to shut down as many projects that have already been completed as it is. I'm not going to let this get out of my sight. But I feel like that's what I think they're going to try their best, but I think NBC's got the upper hand on this particular one. And I, for one, would be all in on the return of the NBA on NBC just to hear this classic song once again on TV. Now that we've gotten past that nostalgic television memory of mine from the 90s, let's talk about another nostalgic television memory of mine from the 90s that is still very much on the air to this very day. And in fact, this past Wednesday to be exact, celebrated its 25th anniversary, and that is, of course, Spongebob SquarePants. And seeing as how we just had the 25th anniversary, I figure might as well go ahead and do a quick rundown of my top 10 favorite SpongeBob SquarePants episodes. Let's turn it into nostalgia there for a second, but no. These are my top 10 favorite SpongeBob SquarePants episodes. I'm going to run through these pretty quickly. So let's go ahead and get right to it. Let's start off with number 10. The first episode, of course, Help Wanted, in which an eccentric sea sponge named SpongeBob SquarePants attempts to get a job at a local fast food restaurant called the Krusty Krab. With encouragement from his best friend Patrick, Mr. Krabs, the owner of the restaurant, considers SpongeBob unqualified for the job and sends him on a fool's errand to get a special mechanical spatula. Later, crowds of ravenous anchovies stop by the Krusty Krab and demand to be fed. SpongeBob somehow finds the spatula and utilizes it to fulfill the anchovies' hunger, and is welcomed as the new fry cook of the Krusty Krab. And as far as pilots goes, might be the overall best pilot they've done up to that point, showcasing the vibrant animation, some really nice looking shots in general. The scene with SpongeBob's flying over the anchovies is great to see. The incorporation of songs like Tiny Tim's Living in the Sunlight, just pitch perfect. The laughs are definitely there. It's a really good episode, not really establishing an origin, and it's just a ton of fun to watch in general. Moving on to number 9, Sail 'Em Out. SpongeBob and Patrick discover a bad wolf in a dumpster behind the Krusty Krab, which Patrick says is a sentence enhancer used for people to look fancy, which it's definitely a sentence enhancer, and I wouldn't say it's used by people to look fancy. It's used by people to get them to really listen to what you have to say, but I digress. They begin using it more often, but then when they yell in front of an entire Krusty Krab, Mr. Krabs confronts them and warns them to never use it again. The next day, SpongeBob and Patrick play a game. SpongeBob lets the word slip. Patrick goes to tell on him, but he also says the word too, and they tell on each other, and Mr. Krabs basically gets ready to punish them by also doing all 13 bad words. And they go to his mother's house and basically say the same thing, and they all end up having to paint the home of his mother in punishment. It's funny because the Rugrats did a similar story like this, and it was pretty intense on how they didn't play it safe in that one, but this really does take the cake. It's a pretty intense and hilarious satirical jabbing of, saying these words in public, these bad words, and it leads to some of the best writing of the show, story-wise and humor-wise, and somebody please go and find that uncensored version that's apparently out there, because I think we all want to see that. Number 8, the best day ever. SpongeBob wants to have the best day ever. He keeps a list of pastimes, including working at the Krusty Krab, jellyfishing, karate, and watching Squidward perform. However, numerous problems occur preventing him from doing that. And it's basically making an episode based off the SpongeBob SquarePants movie song. It's a tough thing to do, but I'll be damned if this one doesn't pull it off and makes a very fun, well-done episode with it. Number 7, SpongeBob SquarePants versus the Big One. A giant tidal wave hits Bikini Bottom and takes SpongeBob to a distant island. It's a bizarrely hilarious episode, made it possible by Johnny Depp's best performance I've seen from him in a long time. I mean, he is just so fun in this, so fun, hilarious, over the top. While not even being over the top, he's just laid back, cool, and it's really a rare performance from him that I think just works on so many levels. Add some great animation, a good storyline, some nice visual flair, and you get probably one of the most overlooked SpongeBob episodes that definitely deserves a lot more attention. Number 6, we have the sponge who could fly. While at the jellyfish field, SpongeBob realizes that he wants to fly among the jellyfish. He proceeds to come up with numerous ways to fly. While at home, his hairdryer inflates his trousers, giving him the ability to fly. Goes around helping people, earning their admiration and becoming a superhero of sorts, until he wants to do stuff on his own, and then they immediately turn against him, which, that's what you have to do in this one, I guess. Advertised as the lost episode, I think this is another one of those episodes that gets overlooked, but it's a really solid episode. Great music all around. It's a really good musical episode, too. The songs are nicely done. The animation is great. The humor is funny. I mean, what more can you ask for? Number 5, Christmas Who, the first of many Christmas SpongeBob specials. This Christmas special is narrated by Patchy the Pirate, where we get our first introduction to him and Poggy, the parrot, the president of the fictional SpongeBob SquarePants fan club. And in the episode, Sandy tells SpongeBob about Christmas traditions, and then relays the events to everybody in Bikini Bottoms with the hope that Santa Claus will be arriving there on Christmas Day. And it's a great, well-written episode and a really good embodiment of the holiday spirit in general. A classic special I usually have to turn on every single year. Number 4, Atlantis Squarepantis. SpongeBob and his friends visit Atlantis. Several attractions at Atlantis have charm to each of the group, including Sandy, Mr. Krabs, and Squidward. However, after popping the oldest bubble, they are chased by the guards. Plankton appears and is adored by the king, who makes Plankton as the replacement edition of the bubble. SpongeBob and the gang return to Bikini Bottom. Again, vibrant, colorful animation all around. Some of the best they had done up to that point. And a great guest spot by the late David Bowie that's often overlooked, but still one of the better extended episodes they've done. Number 3, Chocolate with Nuts. After accidentally getting Squidward's Fancy Living Digest magazine in the mail, SpongeBob and Patrick want to live as fancy as he does. So they decide to sell chocolate bars door to door and everyone in Bikini Bottom. The chocolate bars become a success after they start lying, claiming that the chocolate saves lives. And I mean, one word I think really describes this episode in particular. Chocolate. Chocolate? Chocolate! I think you know where I'm going with that one. I don't think I even need to say any more about why that's such a great episode. Nor do I really need to go into the number 2 episode out here, Band Geeks. Squidward recruits the citizens of Bikini Bottoms to play in a marching band for the Bubble Bowl in an attempt to impress his rival, Squilliam Fancyson. Even though it was a disaster at first, SpongeBob finally convinces the other band members to go through with the performance and for Squidward's sake. He takes command of their training. At the day of the performance, the band arrives to play spectacularly, which has shocked Squilliam. He experiences a state of shocks and faints, leaving Squidward to celebrate as he leaps into the air. And again, there's not really much more you can say about this episode that hasn't already been said. It's freaking fantastic, just from a story perspective, a humor perspective, but the ending alone is just one of the most incredible performances you'll ever see. I mean, it's hard not to start singing along with the song. It's probably the most epic thing you could imagine, and it just leaves you with such a lasting impact that resonates with you as you grow and grow. It's just pure brilliance. And the fact that they were going to do this at the Super Bowl that one year, and then they decided, we're not going to do it the way that we think you want to see it. No, we're going to do it where SpongeBob just shows up at the beginning, and then that's it. And then this past Super Bowl, when they finally got to do it, that was what we needed. We needed that in our lifetime. And I'm glad that they finally went around and actually did that, and actually made this thinking they were going to do a reality. And I mean, what more can I say, man? Man Geeks is just a masterpiece. Which brings us to my number one favorite SpongeBob episode of all time, and that is It's a SpongeBob Christmas. It's a stop-motion episode where Plankton turns everybody in bikini bottoms from nice to naughty by feeding them his special jerktonium-laced fruitcakes, transforming them into jerks in his attempt to get his Christmas wish, the Krabby Patty secret formula. However, when it's revealed that the only victim capable of surviving the mineral is SpongeBob because of his massive love for the holidays, SpongeBob must save the rest of Bikini Bottoms from getting coal for Christmas. They had been in the creative lull for several years up to this point, but this stop-motion special, produced in the same style the Rake and Bash specials, comes around and it's just very funny, brilliantly animated, and overall enjoyable. It's like, the plot seems very reminiscent of what SpongeBob used to be. Like, it's a funny special, a brilliantly animated special. It seems like the people behind it remember what was great about SpongeBob and what we were able to bring to it, and it's a great Christmas tradition. It's one of those ones that I have to watch every single year. It's one of my favorite, more recent Christmas specials. I can't recommend this one enough. It's a SpongeBob Christmas, my favorite episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, bar none. And there's a lot of others I could mention too, but those are my top 10 that I always go back to. Just great stuff, man. Happy 25th anniversary, SpongeBob. So let's go ahead and wrap up the show with one more thing I want to cover before we get to recommendations. So honestly, I really wasn't going to cover this until I saw this last night while doing my usual perusing around YouTube, and somebody put up a video for this thing that aired on UPN back in 1998. Of course, UPN back then had a couple of major misfires in that time of the year, specifically one about a secret diary by someone by the name of Desmond Puff Pfeiffer. That's for another show altogether to talk about, but there was another thing that they did, and I gotta say, man, I could not believe that they actually went ahead and did this. So back in 1998, the UPN decided to do a special about the Ed Sullivan Show. Now, there were two specials that actually aired that night. There was a 50th anniversary special that aired on CBS, but then UPN aired this one thing that they were setting up as hopefully the start of something new, a new show that aired in the fall called the Virtual Ed Sullivan Show. This was an attempt at a resurrected Ed Sullivan Show, and it was a failed project by Sofa Entertainment, who owns the rights to the Sullivan Show and runs the YouTube channel that has all the classic moments from the Ed Sullivan Show. And let me just say that it's about as weird as you think it is. This was back when they were trying to make AI the next big thing. They were trying to make CG the next big thing, and the CG was supposed to be the next big thing. Like, they tried to do this with Wheel of Fortune, where they would have a CG Vanna White as the puzzle person on the kids' version of Wheel of Fortune. But I've never seen this before. I saw a little bit last night, and I gotta say, man, this looks really, really bad. So let's go ahead and play a little bit of this particular show that I have here, and it's called the Virtual Ed Sullivan Show.
At a Ranch Yourself at a restaurant has parents wondering if the sex offender registry really protects children. This is a UPN special presentation.
Got the fire and all that, like this is serious business. This is a special presentation, motherfuckers. And then you got this lighthearted family thing going on. You got that dark. This is a special presentation on UPN, followed by hey, live from you get the idea. I like how half the people in the audience don't even know what the hell they're even watching right now. It's just like they told the people in the audience, just start clapping for no particular reason whatsoever. But like, you see half of them, they don't even know where the hell they're looking. Like, some people are looking to the left, some people are looking to the right, some people are doing that fake woo type of thing. Like, they have no idea what they're looking at, because as you're about to see here, if you're watching along, Like, you look at this thing, and it's just like, that's supposed to be Ed Sullivan? They used a CG version of Ed Sullivan who looks like... He doesn't even look like a real person. Like, somebody at UPN thought that this was going to be a good idea. But it keeps going. It keeps going. Like, I love how they don't even call him Ed Sullivan, just call him Virtual Ed Sullivan, because that's literally who he is in this. But, like, why would you call him that? Just call him Ed Sullivan. That's who you're trying to mock this off of. Because this is an extravaganza of complete shit. I mean, this thing moves so horribly. Like, this is supposed to be a real person, by the way. And it's just amazing how far AI and virtual reality have come along since then, because this was what they thought the future was going to look like. Like, this is what they think the future of television is going to look like. And sad to say that this did not pan out well. Like, I love this shot here. They got Ed Sullivan's back, and the audience is just looking at him. Like, it's supposed to be this effect that they're actually looking at a real person, and it just looks like the Ed Sullivan is about to attack the audience, like he's Godzilla or something. Like, it doesn't look like he's sitting on stage. No, that thing looks like he's about to attack somebody.
So here, direct from their national tour, please welcome David Peter Chapman and Dennis J. Dove from Bring in the Noise, Bring in the Funk.
Actually, when you turn the corner, he looks like Barack Obama a little bit. But you look at this thing, and it's just like... I mean, Ed Sullivan did not look like that, and he had more... Like, when you think of Ed Sullivan, you think of, really big shoe, this does not sound like Ed Sullivan or Ed Sullivan impersonator. It's just like somebody who only looked online, only looked in books or TV shows to figure out who Ed Sullivan was, and just like, yeah, we think that we know who this guy looks like, so we think we can make this work. And needless to say, this did not work. This thing crashed and burned. It only lasted one episode, and they tried to act like it never happened. And it wasn't until somebody found this piece of lost media this past week that we all had no idea this thing actually existed. But lo and behold, here it is. And if you want to experience the special for yourself, I will put a link to it below for you to experience, because I gotta tell you, man, like, thank God we have this, because I would have never believed that this thing actually was possible until somebody literally showed it until somebody put it online this past week. So yeah, that is the horrors that was the Virtual Ed Sullivan Show. So let's go ahead and move on to the real last thing we have to work with here this week, and that is recommendations for the week. And as far as like new releases, there's nothing of particular interest that really suits me, but there's a lot of classic stuff getting re-released. Shout Factory's putting out a 4K release of the two Addams Family animated movies, the ones that came out most recently, which I like the first one in 2019. The sequel, not so much. We have The Crow that's getting a re-release in 4K for the new movie that was supposed to come out next month, but it's now been delayed to August, but they're putting it out anyway. We got Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island coming out on Blu-ray. That's the good news. The bad news is you're going to have to also own Return to Zombie Island on Blu-ray as well, because it's part of a double feature set. And I don't know. I think I'm just going to wait until they actually go ahead and give us the single version of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, because I don't want Return to Zombie Island in my house again after watching that horror. Fletch and Fletch Lives are getting nice-looking Blu-ray releases by Kino Lorber. Maybe the best thing that's coming out this weekend is one that I've been waiting to get a copy of for a long time now, and it looks like we're finally getting it this week. One from the Heart, the Francis Ford Coppola 1982 movie, which features Terry Garr and Frederick Forrest, where you have they play Hank and Franny, who don't seem to be able to live together anymore, and after a 5-year relationship, lustful and dreamy Franny leaves down-to-earth Hank on the anniversary of their relationship. Each one of them meets their dream mate, but as bright as they may seem, they are but a stage of lights and color. Will true love prevail over a seemingly glamorous passion? Welcome to Coppola's Broadway-like romantic musical. It also features Raul Julian, Nastasha Kinski, Lainey Kazan, and Harry Dean Stanton among the cast. And just, it's a really damn good movie, and I really can't wait to check this out on Blu-ray. It's a film I've been waiting for a Blu-ray release for a while now. It's a criminally underrated Francis Ford Coppola movie. 80s Coppola the Coppola in the 1980s knew what he was doing. I mean, he was making these unique, incredible films in general that were largely getting passed over by most people. And it's a shame because you're missing out on some pretty damn good gems during that time in the 80s. I mean, Rumblefish, The Cotton Club, Tucker, The Man in His Dream. A lot of great stuff came in the 1980s. And One from the Heart is definitely one of those ones that's one that is a must-watch for Coppola lovers. I can't wait to check that one out. Hopefully, I can find it in stores next week. But if not, I'm definitely going to pick it up online through Amazon because I need to have that in my life. One from the Heart. That's my big recommendation for the week. If you were looking for something to watch, seek out One for the Heart. That's one you should definitely seek out. So with that said, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Reviewing Network Live for this week. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like what you heard and watched, please go ahead and check out some of our other episodes. Check out the last episode we did last week. Hit the like and subscribe button, and check out some of the other episodes we've done. We're always live here Sunday nights here on the Reviewing. Well, technically not live, but we always have new episodes up here every Sunday night at midnight. Sunday night at midnight, early Monday morning, whatever way you want to look at it. Sunday is at around 11:59. Be on this website, and then you'll see a new episode drop at midnight. Afterwards, is what I'm trying to say here. This is the channel where we also do trailer reactions. We have clipless versions of Time About the Movies that are on here, and that's really been building the subscriber count the last couple of weeks. So thank you to everybody for coming by and checking out those, and hopefully we can get you to come to these shows and enjoy these as well. But like I said, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Until next time, we are out.